Lovely, lovely to meet you. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Dr. Liz Corcoran, and as you'll see, a number of us involved with the National Down Syndrome Policy Group have multiple hats that we wear. You may know me from before this campaigning group as the chair of the Down Syndrome Research Foundation. But I am also now a founding officer for the National Down Syndrome Policy Group. And I'm going to be joined by some of my co-founders this evening and some amazing other people, professionals and experts in their field that are going to be sharing a little bit about this bill and the promise it holds for our community. But actually, let's just kick off by talking a little bit about who the heck are the National Down Syndrome Policy Group. We've kind of come out of nowhere, haven't we? Well, actually, it's a lot of faces that you've been seeing kind of working away in the background in their various furrows. We've been working around different particular areas in Down syndrome in the UK and Wales, Ireland, Scotland. But we've come together for something very special. So we represent a number of different groups and different, as I said, different areas. And we had this common passion that we knew that we needed to work together to change policy, because we knew that the blocks we were facing were common. We were facing similar issues, and we needed to come together to pool our power, to pool our abilities to change that policies from the top and represent your voices at all levels of government where these decisions and laws are made. We wanted to have the ability to come together. So who are we? Let's see some beautiful faces. We are, as I said, representing a number of different groups across different specialist areas within Down syndrome. But most importantly, we have got a very healthy representation of people with Down syndrome themselves on our group. So I'll just go through these gorgeous faces. We've got George Webster, who we're going to hear. He sent us in a video clip. He's an actor, and you may realize he's actually going to be co-hosting on CBB soon. We've got Peter Brackett from PSDS. Heidi Carter. Well, I mean, if you don't know who Heidi Carter is, you guys have got to you've got to follow her. She's living the dream. We've got the lovely Rachel Ross, MBE, and Ken Ross as well from Portsmouth Down syndrome. We've got Bethany Asher, who's an actress. We've got Lynn Murray from Don't Screen Us Out. We've got James Carter, who is Heidi's better half, we're going to be hearing from Heidi and James later. We've got Lucy and Cooper, and we've got Fionn and Jonathan, who are, Fionn's got to be giving us a little performance later. And we've got Nicola Enoch from Down Syndrome UK, Sarah Costerton, and myself, Liz Corcoran. So we're kind of covering a very broad range of different backgrounds in different specialist areas within Down syndrome. So I'm very humbled to be a part of this group, and we are going to be coming to you guys with your specialist areas in time. So if you have something that you want to bring to us, we are all ears. I think that's the important thing we want to get across to you, that we are open and we want to hear from the community. So what are we doing? Why did we feel we need to do this? I've sort of touched on that a little bit, but one of the key areas of what pushed us to actually form this group and actually commit to working together in this coalition was we felt strongly that the all-party parliamentary group for Down syndrome needed to be restarted, because it was a key way that we could feed in the needs and wants and demands even of people in our community into government. So what is an APPG, the all-party parliamentary group? It's a group of different MPs from different political parties that care about a common issue. Now, there's ones on autism, learning disabilities, there's ones on golf, if you can believe that, but there wasn't one on Down syndrome for a few years. And we felt strongly that that needed to be restarted. And thankfully, we can say that it has been. What kind of issues did we want to make sure were raised? Well, we needed to make sure that we were going to promote positive attitudes towards Down syndrome within those sort of higher echelons around policy. We wanted to nationally raise the profile of those issues that affected people with Down syndrome, but not only them, their families, their carers, right? because it's not just that person, it's the sort of circle of support around them as well. And we wanted to work positively with the government with a view to encouraging policy changes in these key areas, which we're going to be talking a little bit about later. At the first APPG meeting, a really exciting thing was proposed, which was the idea of a Down syndrome bill. So let's hear a little bit from our self-advocates a little bit about this.
A Down Syndrome Act. Now, why didn't we think of that before? Thank you to Dr. Liam Fox for making the Down Syndrome Bill a reality.
We are trustees of the National Down Syndrome Policy Group.
And there should be nothing about us without us. I suspect that the world has not yet discovered the Down syndrome superpowers. However, a Down syndrome act could help people to get to know us better.
To change the story of Down syndrome.
There are some big issues for people with Down syndrome and their parents and families.
Like more of us getting jobs and getting help to be a success in the jobs and stay there.
We need good medical care and help to stay well. Sadly, people like us suffered a lot during the recent pandemic. We need help to turn things round. We need to be part of the government's long-term plan. Equality and long life for all.
Then there is education. From early childhood to university, all schools must have an ethos of inclusion, resourced and committed to meet the various needs of children and adults with Down syndrome. That people like me can go to school of their choice. Many schools exclude us. To make sure that even though we are a small group of people, we are not overlooked. And we encourage you to look out for the Down syndrome bill and support us.
A Down Syndrome Act can help more people to be included and get the right support for pupils and teachers.
We do realise that we will probably not get everything by Christmas.
But we hope that the Down Syndrome Act could help make a start.
And we ask our community for support of this bill
to help people like us fulfill our potential.
We are keen to support the Down Syndrome Bill and Dr. Fox, and this bill goes on its journey through Parliament because we have the lived experience. We hope that the Down Syndrome Bill becomes the Down Syndrome Act.
Please support us.
So we've heard from our experts. They've told us we need to support them. So let's learn a little bit more about why do we need a Down syndrome bill. We'll talk more about, well, we keep saying act, we keep saying bill, and what is the kind of journey of this type of legislation through Parliament. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But I kind of wanted to highlight with some of the rest of the team the key issues that we believe that this type of legislation could improve things for our community. So despite laws around equality and opportunity already being in place, we know that with people with Down syndrome and their families are still not being fully included and supported to live their best lives. So the Down syndrome bill is an opportunity for positive change. So I'm going to invite my colleague, Nicola Enoch, to come up on the stage. So Nicola is in charge of PADS, Positive About Down Syndrome, DS UK, And Nicola, tell us a little bit about why, from your point of view, this particular piece of legislation could be so promising. What are the issues that we're facing now?
Thanks, Liz. Well, certainly at PADS, we provide support to a lot of expectant and new parents. And over the years, we've realised that without, for example, a national care pathway, expectant women aren't receiving the health care that they need, and also equally important, not equally, but also importantly, the support emotionally that they need. So the women with a pregnancy affected by Down syndrome, sadly, there is an increased risk of baby being stillborn and of prematurity. And so obviously, Liz knows that we collaborated together with the DSRF to produce a care pathway with St George's Hospital, but that's not a national pathway. Until we've got that, we have expectant women who join our groups who basically are taking the information back into their maternity units to educate the medical professionals, which really isn't satisfactory. So for us, having a pathway, to support expectant and new parents around the care, the information that they're given is absolutely critical.
And they would be compelled to, sort of institute that across the country, and we could potentially see improved outcomes for pregnancies and see this potential reduction in stillbirth rate that would just so heartbreaking for our community.
Absolutely, yes.
So
yeah.
what have you found that happens to parents?
Well, this issue of a lack of support, there's no training around, for example, sharing the information that baby has or may have Down syndrome. And so we know that, expectant and new parents often feel really very, very poorly supported and struggle enormously. And so what we really need is for there to be, a training program around delivering the news that baby has Down syndrome, so that parents get the support and information that they desperately need and deserve, quite frankly.
Absolutely. So what else kind of, do you see? Because you obviously support those early years particularly intensively. What feedback are you getting currently from our community?
Well, something I suppose I think of more, and this is perhaps around education as well. Obviously, I run PADS, but I'm here as mum to a 17-year-old, to Tom. And, throughout his educational experience, the only training his schools accessed was that was provided by local charity. So it's, we have it in the medical professional, but then when our young people enter education, there just isn't that specialist knowledge within mainstream schools to support and encourage, our children to fulfill, have a really successful educational experience. So I think time and time again, any parent who's on this evening's webinar will completely empathise with that we all struggle for our young people to access the services and support that they're entitled to, but at the moment there just isn't that statutory obligation for local authorities and so on to provide. And postcode lottery, certainly it's something we see enormously in PADS preschool groups. There's such a disparity across the country as to who accesses physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and those who are fortunate enough to access a service, there isn't necessarily that specialist knowledge again. So it's just a lottery, and it is desperately overdue that we have legislation that improves the services and therefore the outcomes for our children and young people.
Exactly, because what we see is this kind of thing as they go into adulthood. We see them not being fairly prepared and then being excluded from paid employment. I mean, what a sad statistic that we're looking at currently.
It's outrageous, quite frankly. Yeah, less than 6%. That's typically what one would expect of the national sort of unemployment data, isn't it? Not what the actual employment rate of people with a learning disability. So there's a lot of work to be done, but certainly this bill is such an exciting opportunity for our community. Absolutely thrilled to be involved with it, and really hope that people get behind and give us their support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicola. And we'll have Nicola back later on when we're looking through our questions. But now I want to welcome learning disability nurse, Helen Laberty, MBE, to join me on the stage. And Helen, you know, it's so great to have you here as a professional who is intimately involved in the care of members of our community who are unwell. I myself, my background is in psychiatry, and I did do a placement in learning disability psychiatry. But tell us, you've spent your career working with those with learning disabilities, and you understand what kind of happens when our loved ones can go into hospital. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much for inviting me. And I feel really humbled and honoured as a non-parent of somebody with Down syndrome to be invited in here. I started my career in 1979 in a long stay hospital in deepest, darkest Lincolnshire with 365 residents, from a brand new baby up to a lady called Bessie who had Down syndrome and was in her late 80s. My life would be so much less rich if people with Down syndrome weren't in it. So from an amazing little girl called Ruby, whose daddy I had a Teams meeting with last week, who came on screen to tell me that she thought I was ridiculous. Took us a while to work out she meant ridiculous, because I was suggesting that the duck that she was talking about would have liked a sausage for its breakfast. To a young man who is described as being severely learning disabled, who at a conference 2 years ago managed to see a student nurse with a Just Eat app on her phone and mugged me for my credit card after he'd got her to order the food for him. And to the amazing Sarah Gordy. So we at the university were incredibly honoured and humbled to be the first university, the first Russell Group university in the whole of the UK to make a person with Down syndrome a honorary Doctor of Laws. And I've seen Jane has joined the main assembly, Sarah's mum. Everybody still talks about the day that Sarah graduated from us, because we have never ever seen 3,500 people brought to their feet by one person's acceptance speech as we did on that day. So I just want to go back to something that Nicola said about education, and also twin it with something that somebody in the chat has said about the comparison between this bill and the autism bill. The autism bill has got huge legs because of the power of Paula McGowan. Okay, so Paula has pushed from the front, from the back, from the sides, from you name it, and got a lot of support in terms of the autism bill and the Oliver McGowan training. So I agree with nearly everything that you say, Nicola, but just want to put a different label slant on it, in that midwives are taught about Down syndrome. Midwives are taught about how to support that new mum. The people across the whole of the country in any aspect of their education that are not taught about learning disability specifically are doctors. And I am constantly battling. I sit with Health Education England and you name it, to get into medical education earlier on. We need, as a part of our process, to actually be pushing for that in terms of doctors. You know, this week alone, I've done 5 dissertation supervisions, all from different nurses, physios, sport rehabs, and a pharmacist, all who are doing their dissertations about working with and for people with Down syndrome. Yeah. There is a huge groundswell in terms of what happens. I think what we also need to think about in terms of the bill is the difference in terms of nurses. So yeah, I'm a learning disability nurse. I've got a toolkit. I can take my toolkit wherever it's needed. And I have worked in hospitals and still do. Sorry, I've got a funny eye at the minute. And still do work in hospitals with people on wards, although not so much now since we've had the plague. But we need to start thinking about adult nurses and child field nurses and their specific respect in terms of the way that people with Down syndrome are viewed and seen. But then the Down syndrome community also needs to embrace the learning disability nurse community, which is what you see has dramatically happened with the Cornwall Down Syndrome Association, and we have partnered to do all sorts. The stuff that we do with Amanda Glennon in terms of It Matters and communication, so you need to look at the Makaton pathways, you need to look at the work that we've done with dentistry. So we need to look at the two differences between different fields of nursing and different perspectives in that respect.
Absolutely. And, you know, I can tell you, you know, from my days on the ward that you're absolutely right. The doctors need to have specialist training, and a bill like this would allow us to be able to bring that in. We could use places where there's great practice, like the places where learning disability nurses have worked and have created this, you know, kind of gold standard service, because this stat is just, it's not good enough, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop that people end up dying for completely reversible, treatable causes. We need to see our community better health, living, you know, longer lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, Helen.
That's okay.
And we're going to have Helen around later if we have a particular special question, but thank you so much for joining us tonight, Helen. We really, really appreciate it. So from our point of view, this, you know, part of this problem that we see around healthcare and issues around healthcare, I believe, is centered on the fact that such a small amount of money is spent on, you know, investigating and looking into particular treatments to support the problems, health problems that people with Down syndrome face. We did a Freedom of Information request, and we worked it out at just over £5 per person per year, per person with Down syndrome per year is spent on research that would have a benefit on their life, testing therapies, testing particular interventions. That's pitiful. And a bill would give us the power to be able to lobby as a research charity and as a policy group to improve that. So just moving on, a bill, as we've said, will force all authorities to take people with Down syndrome into account when providing education, health, and care services. It would be an enabling piece of legislation. We touched on some of these key areas, health and research, right from that moment where the mom's getting her diagnosis antenatal or postnatally. We want to see better care, those places that have begun to do care pathways during pregnancy to improve pregnancy outcomes, right the way through to end of life. You know, we know that the stats have not been good for people who get COVID, and sadly, you know, if we had this type of legislation, you know, we would hope that actually it wouldn't have been the way it actually turned out to be. When we look at employment, that, you know, we see that the low expectations that are put upon our young adults to be able to be in employment, to contribute and to be a part of society. They want to be a part of, you know, working life just like any one of us, and they should be supported to do so. As many of you know, I know a lot of you here have parents, are parents of younger children, that the issues around education are ongoing. We've got an amazing professionals out there developing an evidence base. We've got, I think Sue's joining us, Sue Buckley's joining us from Down Syndrome Education. Thank you, Sue, for all the work you've done. We need to be able to give that legislation the boomph, use your research to be able to get people learning and getting the best of their ability. And social care. There's particular issues faced by our community when they engage with social services, when the care packages are developed. And we believe that this law would allow us to help local authorities to be sensitive when they develop those care plans, to help them to take into account, as they do with individuals with autism, that they would do the same thing for individuals with Down syndrome. So I hope during the course of this potential kind of these purple slides where we've talked through the different domains that the bill could benefit, that some things have been coming to your mind, that things that could have gone differently for your loved one, for you, if you're someone with Down syndrome, and that you're actually getting excited about the potential that this bill holds for you, for your loved one, for your family. We're going to talk now. I'm going to invite Ken and Rachel Ross to join me up on the stage. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi. You're going to talk to us a little bit about these sort of nuts and bolts of how a law is made, and particularly like this type of law, because it's a little bit different. And yeah, fill it in, break it down for us, because, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand legal speak. So make it really simple for me.
No worries. Can I just say, I just had a message pop up from Pippa Hodge, who's saying her screen is fuzzy. I think it's just popped up for everyone. I don't know if that's Pippa's connection or if everyone is.
Can I see just thumbs up from the other? You're okay. I'm seeing thumbs up from the other. So Pippa, sorry, it might be your Wi-Fi. I don't know. Tell the kids to get off the Xbox. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Well, Pippa, don't worry. It's being recorded. Anyone else with video technical issues, you will get a link later so you can watch back. Anyway, take it away, Ken.
Okay, so first reading of the bill happened on June the 16th, 2021. And if anyone saw that, I think I blinked for 5 seconds and I missed it. It literally was Dr. Liam Fox standing up in Parliament and saying the Down syndrome bill. And then it was billed to have a second reading on the 26th of November, 2021. I think probably what's worth saying, though, is for Dr. Fox to get up and say the Down syndrome bill on the 16th of June. That was 5 weeks after the APPG, that's the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Down Syndrome, was formed. That organisation was made up of 7 different political parties, so right across the political spectrum in the House of Commons. And Dr. Fox, when he had his name pulled out of a hat, there was something like 500 MPs had their names put into a hat. He had his name pulled out of the hat and was in almost pole position to introduce a private member's bill. Now, to get him to choose the Down syndrome bill, he had over 3,000 organisations contact him in almost no time at all to say, choose our cause. You know, our cause is of merit. You know, we need to represent people from different walks of life, and we would like you to champion it. So we as an organisation then had to convince Dr. Fox that the cause that he really wanted to champion was the Down syndrome bill. And I think it's worth saying that one of Dr. Fox's assistants has a son with Down syndrome. So Annabelle Tall also lobbied very hard with Dr. Fox as well to say, you need to look at this and you need to help. So that's how the first reading of the Down syndrome bill came about.
And as Ken said, the second reading of the bill is going to be on the 26th of November. This is the step where more MPs read the bill and they vote on whether the bill should carry on through Parliament. It's the most important stage of the bill's passage, and also it's the most difficult. Our bill is different because it's a private member's bill, which means that it's very rare for one to proceed and actually come into fruition and become an act. We need government backing. We are hopeful. We've been working like absolute slaves behind the scene, liaising with various different ministers, different health departments, the education department. Liam himself has gone above and beyond in his team. They're just working non-stop. We're hoping we have government approval soon, and that should hopefully be announced over the next few days. It's a huge achievement to get to this stage. It's just unheard of, to the point where even the most official highest ministers and the highest departments aren't actually familiar with the procedure in putting this in place, which is why we've had a couple of delays with the date. although it's a big achievement, it still has to go, the bill still has to go through several more stages. So that's why we still need your continued support. And we'll talk about how you can help us with that at the end.
Yeah, so as Rachel said, the second reading of the bill is probably the most crucial stage. With a government majority of 80, even if every other MP voted for it, the government could stop this going through. We are quite excited that the government will support it, and we're going to assume that the government will support it. So we then move on to the committee stage. Now, the committee stage is really where all the civil servants start getting together with the ministers and the ministerial staff and start really looking at the processes of how this bill can sit within each department. Now, one of the things which is helpful to compare this bill to, but in one sense is also unhelpful to compare the bill, is to the Autism Act. So the Autism Act was linked only to adults, and it was linked only to healthcare. They may be subject to some amendments, but our bill is linked to the DWP, so employment, the education department, and the Department for Health and Social Care. Now, I'm saying those names may well have changed since yesterday, because they always rename the different departments, but we are looking across several different offices of state. So it actually creates a bit of a complicated jigsaw to make sure that all the pieces sit together and all of those various departments know how they can progress with the obligations that the bill will create. From the committee stage will then come out a report, and the report will basically say to the MPs how the law should be changed and what should happen. And any problems that had been thought about during committee stage should be on the table, addressed, and the solutions given. So that way, we then should know that we have a bill which is workable in law, and the departments know what the obligations are on them. And there was a question again in the chat to say, how will this force people? How will this force local authorities to do things? Well, if we had gone for, let's create some guidelines, they're not legally enforceable. Guidelines are followed when it suits people to follow them. If there's a law that obliges the state or various different levers of the state to perform certain tasks, if they don't do it, they can be sued. So they can be held to account. So this is why it was very, very important not to just produce guidelines, but actually to create a law which will oblige the state to follow through on what's being agreed.
And just, can I ask quickly, guys, so we're using this word bill, we're using this word act. Can you explain for people like why we keep using the different terms and what's the difference?
Yeah, so every law starts off life as a bill, and until it becomes law, it remains a bill. So while it goes through Parliament, it's a bill. As soon as it leaves Parliament, it becomes law. Okay. So that's very simply the terminology. And when I say law, that means it's called the Act. So at the moment, it's the Down Syndrome Bill. When it becomes law, it will be the Down Syndrome Act. Okay.
And the other thing a lot of people have asked us is for a copy of the actual, paper. So yes. At what point is that released from sort of government offices? Because we ourselves don't have that yet, do we?
No, I mean, to explain how complicated this is, the bill was drafted, and there's a couple of people talking now who drafted the bill, so we know intimately what's within the bill. Then the bill goes to the government, and the government decides, well, do we like some of these words or don't we like some of these words? And so they have a look at that. That whole process is done only by written correspondence. So it's not done by email. And the only people who are allowed to see that written correspondence are the ministers in charge and the civil servants who work for them and the special advisors who work with the ministers. Even Dr. Fox isn't allowed to see any of the changes that are going on until the bill is finally signed off by the lead department. And the lead department in this process is the Department of Health. So this sort of hand-delivered or postal hand-written piece of work is called the write round process. So one department leads, which is the Department of Health, they then send it round to the other departments that are going to be affected by the bill who need to contribute. And as I say, it's literally done, it's almost like done like it's on a scroll. So there is no leaks and no one, so that no other MP, so if Dr. Fox can't see it, no MP can see this at the moment until it's finally signed off. And you know, it's basically, it will just really be, the person who will see it in its final form will be Sajid Javid, the current health secretary, who will sign it off.
And again, it's strict to the normal because it is a private members bill. There's slightly different rules that apply there. So it's not that we don't want to share it, it's that we're not allowed to share it. But what the description we have circulated is basically the main bulk of the bill. All the rest is just wording and fancy wording. The main bulk of the bill has been shared. So that will give people a big idea what's going to be included.
So,
Brilliant.
So
Thank you guys.
Once we get past the report stage, we then go to the third reading. And the third reading is, again, kind of a bit like the first reading. It's a bit more of a formality stage. So we're hoping if it gets past the second reading, it will get to the third reading around the 19th of January. And after the third reading, that's the last time for anything to be changed. It then goes to the House of Lords.
Okay, at the House of Lords, the bill is looked at by the House of Lords, and like the MPs, the Lords can also ask for changes to be made and vote on whether the bill should continue. At the Lords stage, they do tend to support the MPs, so it's unlikely that they'll turn it down, but they do have the opportunity to make some amendments. We'll be advising them, and Liam's team will be advising them not to make amendments. We get people trying to be helpful and trying to insert bits here and there, but we really don't want that to happen. We don't want any complications. And so that's an important stage as well. Then finally, or nearly finally, the royal assent. The Queen then looks at the bill and decides if she agrees what has been planned in the bill by the Lords and the MPs. Once she agrees, the Down syndrome bill can move to the last step. Again, this is more of a formality as well.
Then this is where the bill becomes an act. So it's received royal assent, it then becomes an act, so it's now law. If it becomes law, what the bill says is that for the next year, following it becoming law, various strategies will be devised to ensure that the right support and accessibility is given in maternity, education, employment, healthcare, and social care.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for sort of taking us through that and breaking that down. You know, as you've said, this isn't your typical piece of legislation going through, is it? So they're sort of a little bit different than maybe even people who understand laws being made. So it's really helpful. Yeah, really helpful.
It was as recently as Halloween that the Cabinet Office had to advise the Department of Health what it was they were actually meant to do in terms of the process.
Okay.
And that was the day before. So that was on a Sunday, the day before it was meant to go through what they thought would be the process. And then they realized they'd made a mistake. Okay. So it's, you know, people are learning on the job, and we were trying to work out when a bill got this far before, and no one's quite sure, which sort of suggests that it must have been a very long time ago.
So that means we're about due for this kind of thing to get through. So, I mean, it's very, very exciting. And like when you talked us through right from that beginning where that ballot was being pulled, and also just that the first meeting that Dr. Fox was willing to bring this up and actually propose it. This is so special. And I keep saying this, we're making history. And, you know, this is such a kind of monumental thing for our community that, you know, the team, we don't want this to pass the community by sort of not realizing the gravity of what's happening here. So, so important. We're going to talk a little bit more, do a few more questions with you guys and maybe some of the others in our group. But I wanted to just ask Fionn and Jonathan to get yourselves ready. Oh, brilliant. So let me just turn off my screen sharing. Welcome, Fionn and Jonathan. How are you guys doing?
Great. Yes, keeping well, thanks.
Good. Right, so we are so pleased. We are going to just have a kind of a little showcase of your abilities, Fionn. And while we're doing that, we want you guys to have a think of some of the questions you have for us around the bill and, you know, maybe associated areas that we are working on, and put those in the chat while we have a brief listen to Fionn and have a kind of enjoyed musical interlude with you.
Yes.
So kick off. I'm going to mute myself, and feel free to turn off your cameras and have a dance.
Hello, my name is Fionn Crombie Angus, and I am a founding officer for the National Down Syndrome Policy Group. Today, there are few skilled musicians with Down syndrome. With the Down Syndrome Act, new opportunities will arise. And when I'm old, like my dad, there will be many amazing young musicians with Down syndrome to collaborate with.
And until then, are you happy enough to collaborate with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What are we going to play?
We are going to play an Irish bone dance called Jimmy Duffy's Bone Dance.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Fionn. If you guys enjoyed that, you can use your reaction buttons to give him some claps and some thumbs up. Oh, they're all flying up now. Thank you so much, Fionn. And thank you for sharing why you think this is such an important piece of work that we are doing here as a team for the community. So if I just jump across, and while we are hearing, we've heard from Fionn, if Ken and Rachel are okay just to hang on for a second, I think it'd be a good moment to hear from some of our other team members. And then we'll jump back and do some of your amazing questions. You guys are just so intelligent, these questions in the chat. So here we're going to start with George.
Hi, I'm George. I am an actor and a dancer. I support the Down Syndrome Bill because people like us deserve brilliant education, brilliant well-being and brilliant healthcare. So please support this bill so that people like us can live up to our potential.
Hi, I'm Bethany and I'm a professional actress. I support the Down Syndrome Bill. People like us deserve to have a brilliant education, a brilliant job and a brilliant healthcare. So please support this bill so that people with Down syndrome can reach their full potential. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I work in a care home. I support the Down syndrome bill because I would like to get my own for that. And I need the right support and to do that. Please support the bill.
So I'm just going to pause that. And if we just get our team members, let me just add a spotlight and let's pull you up as well, Nicola. Great. Okay. Now there's other team members that are hoping I won't call on them and bring them up on stage, but I might. So just keep on your toes. We're going to cover some of your questions now. So some of you guys have put some great questions in the chat, and some of you submitted them when you registered for this webinar. So, you know, Ken and Rachel, some people are sort of wondering, is this just a party political agenda? Is this just another kind of thing these politicians are pulling out the hat? What do you guys have to say to that?
I think the honest answer is yes, I suppose so. All parties are after the thing that's going to get them noticed, the thing that's going to make them popular. At the end of the day, they want votes, and we'd be naive to say, no, it's not a party political statement. But we can say that Liam Fox and his whole team are completely dedicated to this. They're completely passionate. We've spoken to them. They really believe in what they're doing. They've liaised brilliantly with us. They've kept us in the loop. We've worked as a team. So they're not trying to score points. There is a genuine passion there. And I think, as Ken said, his assistant has a son with Down syndrome, so he's fully aware of the challenges families face. His particular passion is social care, because he can see as people with Down syndrome are living longer, that there is going to be a potential crisis coming up with if when the parents aren't around anymore, where do these people go? And at the moment, there's nothing suitable for a 50-year-old with Down syndrome who needs a home or a care home. They can get put into old people's homes or other unsuitable places. So that's his absolute passion.
Yeah, and there's only one person who calls me after 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and that's someone from Liam's office. I mean, these people are literally working around the clock to get this over the line. Yeah, they're also trying to dovetail in this, this piece of work for them with everything else that's going on in government. And you really start to, I know politicians can be criticised all the time, and obviously we always see usually negative headlines about politicians, but these people work extraordinary hours. They're having to deal with a huge amount of topics, and just getting a voice heard above the business that the government thinks it wants to do is quite a feat. I generally think if anyone else had proposed this private members bill, it wouldn't be where it is today.
No, I agree. I don't think it would exist.
Liam Fox is such a well-respected member of the House of Parliament that it's difficult for his colleagues in government to turn around and sort of cold shoulder him. So people have to take his call. They have to speak to him. And we keep having to remind him and the team, and I'm sure they're very aware of it, that we can't have people with no experience of Down syndrome advising the government about how to work with people with Down syndrome. So for everyone in the civil service, and apologise if there's anyone from the civil service here, who is advising the government with anecdotal knowledge, that's the thing we need to stop. We need to see the correct information being handed to the policymakers so that the people who need the benefit of this law actually receive a piece of legislation which they deserve, and frankly, they've waited far, far, far too long for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's great that actually he's a doctor himself. He's been kind of in the trenches. He's seen the particular challenges that our community can face. So yeah, it's we'll send him a bunch of flowers to thank him. So I think we talked a little bit about the potential benefit to the age group, but Nicola, do you want to say, people are interested, what age groups will this impact the most?
I don't know that am I unmuted? Yes.
You're unmuted.
For my life, that's all we ever do, isn't it? My understanding is that it will impact anybody with Down syndrome, literally from the womb to the grave. That's our aim, has been to sort of really ensure that, the services are there that are required, as we say, from start to finish. So I wouldn't say it impacts, it literally everybody. Because we're asking, for it to be across all those areas of education, health, social care, and employment. So,
and I think when we sort of kind of push that APPG to get going again, and we were there to facilitate feeding, the issues that we can all see, and our team members with Down syndrome telling us firsthand what they face. We knew there was going to be pushes in particular areas. Some bits will surge ahead, other bits will need more time to focus on. So, this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that's right. I think people are asking when will they start to see the impact? And I guess that, it will take time. But as Rachel just said, we've waited long enough. We just have to hang on in there, knowing that once, if it goes through and becomes an act, it will make a huge difference, to the current generation and future people with Down syndrome. It's amazing.
And it's a progressive piece of legislation. That's the thing which is key, and why we thought we couldn't, or we shouldn't just be looking at one particular age group, because there's no point starting and stopping, and there's no point starting at the end. We have to start at the beginning, and we have to ensure that the services are correct from day one for everyone.
And it's pointless focusing on something like employment if the young people haven't got the skills and the results, the exam results they need to access that employment. So it kind of all follows through from, as Nicola said, diagnosis all the way through.
Absolutely. With a couple of times, some of our community that face dual diagnosis are wondering whether this would include them. Absolutely. Obviously, we haven't seen the detail yet, but there is a lot of work going on around, the issues around dual diagnosis, not just for Down syndrome and autism, but other neurodevelopmental conditions. So this is a big area where we're pushing on the government from multiple different angles. And this would be another sort of string in the bow to allow us to push for better provision for those that have that in complexity, of needs. So absolutely, yes, you would be included.
And I think, sorry, Liz, it's worth saying as well that Annabelle, Liam's assistant, her son Freddie, has Down syndrome, has autism, and is deaf, and is largely non-verbal. She's seeing this as a fantastic opportunity for Freddie as well. So we're very alive to making sure this is a piece of legislation for everyone.
Absolutely. We've had a few questions about how we will implement the bill within education. At the moment, this has all happened so fast. And, although the team you see, we have worked together on various projects in the past, we have actually been thrown into this project, and, the sort of longer term, particular channels that need work it's going to be, as I said, a marathon, not a sprint. So the implementation of particular areas we as a group were, going to be going out to the experts that are in the community. Sue Buckley, we're going to be calling you, these people out there that are world experts in education and healthcare and research and all of this stuff, because we want to make sure that those voices are the ones that are informing policy, right? This isn't a club that is a closed door. This door is open, and we need to feed that expertise that's out there in the community. And that net has been able to be swung very wide because of the different backgrounds that we're all coming from. So, this is a kind of moving, historic bill. Thank you, Lynn. Absolutely. That, a lot of things are changing and moving, but you guys, a lot of you have asked what you can do to help. We're going to be touching on that in a minute, but maybe we'll just take one more question, because I want to give Heidi and James a chance to come up and talk to us. So just stand by to spotlight Heidi and James. Let's see, what last question should we do? Okay, aren't there sufficient laws in place already? Isn't this just going to be used as an excuse for the government to do something when the reality is something else? What do we think? What's the kind of safe answer or true answer?
I don't know any parent who feels that they're receiving the services and support they need. No. Yes, there's legislation out there, but it's just not specific to people with Down syndrome. So as an example, in education, our local authority provides specialist support in mainstream schools to those who are visually impaired, have a hearing impairment, autistic, or this catch-all complex needs. So, and someone who works in complex needs has got to know everything, and they might not have had any specialist training around Down syndrome. So yes, he's being supported in education, but no, there's not specialist knowledge. So what the bill would state, one of the first things is that the numbers of people with Down syndrome are actually recorded, so that local authorities have that information to plan accordingly, but then that it will be very specific to people with Down syndrome. So, I'm yet to find, if there is a parent on here who's absolutely satisfied with all the services their child or young person's been receiving, I think that's exceptional, but the current system doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about why will it make a difference is just going back to the point about it not being guidelines. If it's guidelines, it really is at the mercy of a local authority supporting it or an education authority supporting it and delivering it. By making this law, there is no choice. At the moment, as it stands, this should, if it goes through, become law in England. It had hoped it would be in the UK. It's hoped it could still be the whole of the UK. But this isn't about making it nice and easy for the government or for local authorities to tick a box. This is about delivering real change, which is why when it goes to the strategy stage, we really do need everyone to be involved in that, because we need to try and ensure that all different areas are addressed properly and coherently, and proper provision and planning is implemented and allocated.
And I think that's why this bill is so exceptional in its current format. I mean, obviously it's subject to amendments by the government, but in the current format, it's very rare to have such an expansive bill that covers all areas and all ages. So if we can get this through, it will be a real coup.
Well, we're going to touch on in a minute what you guys can do to help. And I'm sorry if we haven't been able to cover all the comments. And I know there are a number of people that have had a hard time, that they have a certain skepticism about what's gone before. But bear in mind that lessons have been learned from the Autism Act, and we are all plugged in. I am a part of the Embracing Complexity Coalition and sit on a board where other people who are APPGs across the different neurodevelopmental conditions, all feeding back together. We're not in desperate groups. We're all working together to do what we can to raise the profile of our various conditions, but also where we have more than one condition in going on in our community. So try to maybe put aside that cynicism and get behind this, support this, because if it can only make things better, if it can only actually provide us with some legislation that we can use to go to local authorities and different government bodies to be able to begin to demand better care for our loved ones. If we see that expected lifespan increasing by 1, 2, 3 years, isn't that worthwhile everything we've done? You know, I think we've got to get behind this as a community. And no, you know, we don't know yet, but we're working together, we're moving forward, and we want you all to be involved and come with us on this journey. So bear with us, we're going to tell you what we need from you, but I'm going to go to Heidi and James now. Thank you so much, guys. Heidi and James are going to tell us a little bit about what this means to them, this bill. So if one of the team can, let's put a spotlight on you guys. There we go. Hello. Tell us what you think.
I'm trying to say before I start that I applied for a new job.
You applied for a new job?
Yes, and I'll be working with the NHS, and I'll be helping them to make for them.
So about the Down syndrome bill. So I want the Down syndrome to know that it is important for other people with or without a disability to have a say. And also I think it is important for disabled people and understand what the Down syndrome bill really is.
And I love you. I support the Down syndrome bill because I want better for people with Down syndrome and other disabilities. And for my mum.
Thank you so much, guys. Your connection was a bit spotty, but I think we owe you a congratulations, Heidi, as well for your new job. Thank you.
I haven't got it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, you're a shoo-in. Who wouldn't hire you? And
she thinks she's got it.
That's.
So I'll be. I'm sure that people with disabilities will get better healthcare.
Yes, absolutely. And we agree. We're 100% behind you. And thank you so much, James, as well.
As it ties into this, so I'll give you my update of what I do.
Yes, everybody, if you don't already follow Heidi and James's page, then please find them on Facebook and follow them for exciting updates in married life. So thank you so much, guys. I'm going to move now to talk a little bit about what you can do. Because I know a lot of you are desperate now. We've got you all chomping at the bit to know what can you as members of the public, members of the community do to support this. So actually, I'm going to invite Sarah. Sarah, put a spotlight on yourself. Sarah Costerton is a team member, and actually, if you are writing and contacting us, she's often the one who's coming and responding to your queries. Sarah, we want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about what people can do to support this bill.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So yeah, it's quite tricky, isn't it? Because things are moving so fast that it's really hard to try and keep up and try and keep you all informed. So the best way to keep informed is to follow us on Twitter. And I've put the tag there, and we're also on Facebook. So I try and keep that updated. That's the best way of finding out, and we're very open to you messaging, emailing, telling us, you know, your story, what skills you've got, anything that you want to contribute or ask. You know, please do that. It's really hard starting from scratch. As Ken said, we're very new, and so developing contacts is really difficult. So one of the main things you can do is follow us, keep informed, and then also just share on your social media, with your support groups, with your family, with your friends. We simply don't have enough people just with Down syndrome or who love someone with Down syndrome to make this happen. We need to extend into the wider community. So please do, you know, just get everyone involved. So we've got a couple of events coming up. The first is November the 23rd, and Liam Fox in the afternoon will be holding a meeting or an open house in a way with other MPs to come and visit, and they will come talk to Liam, hear more about the bill. There's a photo opportunity for them, and so hopefully we will be getting lots of photos of MPs coming and showing their support for him and the bill. So that's the 23rd. You can write to your MP if you've not already done so, asking them to attend that event. We will also be inviting them, and Liam as well. So they are getting a lot of stuff in their inbox about this. Don't be disheartened if you don't get a response. Don't be disheartened if you get a negative response. We've found that lots of people are getting the same kind of response, in sometimes word for word. So don't worry about that. All you can do is make sure they know, and we are getting the MPs writing to us for more information, so do be encouraged. And then the big event, which we're hoping is going to be a celebration, is on the 26th of November, which is the reading of the second reading of the bill. So the reading will be in the morning, and we're hoping we'll get the result we're hoping for. And then it's a time to celebrate. It's a time to share with the press as well what's been happening. So we're hoping that will be outside Parliament. We're not quite sure where yet. It will be around midday. Again, we'd love as many people to come as possible. Bring the children. It's, you know, I will be bringing my whole family. This is a historic, once in a generation opportunity, really, and we want to be part of it. And again, we need to show that we want this and that we support it from within our own community. That's a really important message. So it will be a great way to raise awareness for Down syndrome generally. So yeah, I think that's the main things for me. If you're sort of savvy on social media, the hashtag we're using is Down Syndrome Bill. If you can put capitals on the down, on the D and the S and the B in that, it means that it's easier to read for people. So yeah, I think that's all from me.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. And yeah, just to clarify for people, that 23rd is where Liam Fox is working with his colleagues in government. So our role is going to be sort of getting our MP to walk down the hallway and go to that event. And they love a photo opportunity. So you're going to hopefully already be following your local MP or us. And when you see those pictures coming up on the 23rd, make sure you retweet them, reply to those pictures, let those MPs know that you see what they're doing. You want to compel them to support this. We'll tell them a little bit why it would make a difference to you and your loved ones. So the 23rd is something that we're going to be doing kind of from home. We're going to be sort of sharing those pictures, writing to them ahead of time, getting them to go along and meet with Liam and hear about this bill. The 26th, we need to get your thermal underpants on and your jackets on, because we're going to be going outside Parliament for our party. So make sure you follow us and subscribe so that you can actually get the details. But it's going to be from 12 o'clock that we're going to be meeting outside Parliament. So you'll be seeing us with those DSPG colors. We're going to be, like Sarah said, it's going to be a party. So, you know, come along ready to show everyone that we are ready to celebrate what's happening. And as you said, making history. So Sarah's also going to be sharing on the page. We have got a new frame. Do you want to tell everyone about the I Deserve kind of materials that you're going to be putting up?
Yeah. Just one thing with the 26th.
Okay.
So we're asking people to wear the colours, the pink, purple and bluey kind of colours, because otherwise we'll all look grey. So let's go bright. It can be a pink bobble hat, a purple scarf, whatever. We've got, you know, placards, flags. So let's make some colour, you know, and some noise really. So that's with that. So we've got a new campaign. I mean, obviously the clock is ticking. So, you know, we really need to crack on. So this one that we're doing at the moment is hashtag I Deserve. And I'll share the Canva frame if you're familiar with Canva, and you just need to upload a photo and then a statement. So I did one of my daughter in brownies, and it just said, I deserve to be included. Other people have done, I deserve to have equal opportunities. I deserve an inclusive education. So think about the thing that is most important to you, and a photo. The photo needs to be in landscape. If you're stuck with it, I can help with some of them. But I will, I'll make sure the Canva link is on Twitter.
And paper and pen, if all of that scares you, and well, who is Canva? I don't want them to come to my house. What is it? Don't worry, paper and pen works. And we really want to hear from those of you who, you know, your loved ones nonverbal, you have communication difficulties, you know, speak for them, tell us, what do they deserve? They deserve communication aids, they deserve specialist therapies, they deserve actually people that understand the complexities that they face. Please, we want to hear from all members in this community. And just to reassure that those type of groups where, you know, we've heard from some amazing self-advocates this evening. We're not blind that there are members of our community who are silent, that we aren't reaching, that we're not hearing. And I want to reassure those of you here listening and watching later that we are doing everything we can to reach those groups as well. We want everyone in our community, not just the gorgeous babies that we see on pads. We want everyone to be seen and heard and have a voice and feed into what's going on this work. So thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for everything you're doing, you and the rest of the team, the social media sort of team. So we really appreciate that and everything that you guys are doing. So just, you know, really, to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving your evening. We've run over by 15 minutes and you've stayed on. So we really, really appreciate that. And just make sure to kind of like and follow us and just listen in for the changes that are coming, because we are making history, everybody. Thank you so much.